Oh, juicy, juicy cash money, super. What are you going to do with all of that super? We are talking with people every day about what they're doing with their super, and we're going to share that with you today. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Morning.
Mr. Josh Swapshot.
Mark Novak, the big $13 billion super switch. Seems to be a yes, you go.
Do people realize how much money is there in super? It's so much money.
Massive. What was it? 3.5 trillion or something, bigger than the ASX.
We have more money, cash money, stocked in our super than the whole of the market cap of the whole ASX, the whole stock market of Australia. All the businesses in Australia, we have more cash than them in the super.
Yeah, it's a big kitty, and it looks like they've started to open that chest with things like the self-managed super fund, and we've seen it. Not sure if everyone saw there was a report came out last week. $13 billion in super has been transferred over to self-managed super funds as opposed to your generic leave it with your booper in the last 12 months alone. And Mark and I did the numbers on that, guys. And if you divided by the average super holding, 188,000, it came to nearly 70,000 a year, which is nearly 200 people a day that are setting up self-managed super funds. And I'm seeing it day to day on the ground as well.
Yeah, well, for people that don't know, I think you learn very quickly when you get a job that okay, I have to put my super somewhere. So you choose an industry super fund, right? But then there comes a time where it sort of gets to a size where you want to look after it yourself and make investments of your own, and you can self manage it, and then you start a self managed super, which is what we're talking about, and then you control that. When you control your self-managed super, this is not financial advice, by the way, but just we're observing what we see people do. When you control it, people make investments like property. So they'll go out, they'll buy a property, and they will, they will, they will control their self-managed super and make purchase on the back of it a property.
Definitely, and I'm seeing this really. Probably the biggest party is your business owners. So they're going out purchasing rather than paying a rent or leasing a premises. They'll go out and purchase it themselves, buy it in their self-managed super fund, and then they'll lease it back to their company. So it's big. Up at 7 Rodber Road, probably I say out of four of my last 5 deals up there have all been purchased under a self-managed super fund. So you're definitely starting to see the figures in the headline come across to your everyday interaction. And it seems like people want the power back in their hands.
When I talk to people about their super, the thing they're most surprised about is that when they can buy something in it. The thing they're most surprised about is that their super can borrow money on its own, to the tune of, like, if your super becomes a small deposit and the loan becomes a big loan. The third thing people are surprised about is that it's that super is like a different person to them. So if they're thinking about getting a loan to make their house bigger, do an extension, the super loan and their home loan are two different people, even though it's their super. So there's a couple of things there that people get shocked about. And then another thing would be that when they're fully retired, that they can live off that income that the property has generated. or they don't have to pay tax when they sell it if they're fully retired. There's a couple of really important things you want to talk to your accountant about when it comes to super that are big nuggets. Josh,
Yep.
I want to ask you a question. When did this whole super thing start and why?
So was that what your original, take it out of your paycheck every week? What was it? Was it at 72? What, 1972?
Yeah, 1982.
1982. There you go.
1982. Why are people, why was this introduced? One may ask.
Well, we were talking about this morning, and it's probably to try and take some weight or responsibility off the government when it comes to looking after your retirees. So welfare, we all know that takes a big chunk up of your budget annually. So I guess putting the responsibility back in their own hands sort of takes the weight off the government there. So maybe that's a little bit of a play to be like, hey, we're looking after you. You look after your own money. We're not gonna direct it and tell you where it needs to go now. But they're also going to take that weight off their shoulders as well when it comes to looking after the older as they're non-producing tax like they used to when they're younger, like a younger working generation. So, with that, where you going with this, Mark?
Yeah, look, I think as a country and as a community, we have a responsibility to look after our elders, and that generally falls on a government and the way they provide for retirement funds and stuff like that. So I think did I say 1982? 1992, 82,
Yes.
92. 92. 1992, the super started. And I think when it was introduced, it was quite clever because they're like, you know what, we're going to make people forced to save for themselves. So when they're retired, they've got money. The average Australian has about 190 grand. Average Australian has about 190 grand now in their super. That's the average. So it's working. It started at something like 3 or 4%. I can't remember what the number was, and now it's up to 12%. So people are paying a small fortune out of their annual wages, or their employers is what they're saying. But that's a huge win for Australians. Our super pot is one of the biggest in the world, and we're not one of the biggest countries in the world.
Definitely, yeah. Per capita, we're right up the top of the list there, and
Yeah.
it seems to be ever growing. But yeah, it's really wanted to focus on this switch we're seeing. I think it was around 10% of the total pool was switched over to self-managed super funds. The 12 months before the last 12 months. And then that's accelerated up to about 17% over the last year. So nearly double the amount of people are switching over to self-managed super funds. And like you said, Mark, especially with all these changes to tax, capital gains, etc., there are some real pockets of gold with having these self-managed super funds, whether it's concessional tax rates, no tax at all holding into retirement. There's lots of benefits when it comes to the self-managed super fund. Definitely.
The only one thing that I don't like is the government's got their mitts on it.
Yeah, but to a way, you sort of said, like, say, how do they get their mitts on it if someone's buying a property, brick and mortar? Staging adjustment. But yeah, guys, it's oh, here we go. How does the government get their hands on it if they're purchasing brick and mortar?
They changed the tax.
Because that can be also.
So, they've done it. There's been, since the inception of super, there's been changes in rulings for tax for super in the favour of and out of the favour of the super owners. So I am concerned with putting more money or all of your money into super, but I do think there's necessary incentives there to go, okay, let's make an investment in that pot, because it by law has to be paid. You have to put, your employer has to put that contribution to that forced savings towards your super. So you may as well do something with it. Most people are thinking, I think,
Yeah.
but there was something that came through government. I can't remember how it came through government, but if you've got over 3 million in super each, which is a lot of money, they are going to charge you capital gains tax every year.
That's right. Yeah, I was reading that this morning as well. So probably
So
I don't want people taking too much advantage of the benefits there. Maybe that's a little like, hey, that's your limit.
well, I've got a client which just thought, look, that's just a great bucket to hold a certain asset. I think the
Mm,
asset was a 20 or $30 million asset. And they were like, if this asset goes up by 10% every year, we're going to have to pay about $1 million a year in tax. And I asked
wow.
him a question. I said, what happens when you don't, your super doesn't have that money, liquid cash, to actually pay the capital gains tax every year? And it has to come out of your pocket.
Wow.
So it's not restricted to within the super, which I thought was unusual. But
Yeah,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. Check it up. Anyway, I think our point from this morning is awareness. We're not giving advice. We're telling you what deals are being done and we're doing out there. And if you don't have awareness around your super, it's just so much money to ignore. It's probably a bit dumb.
exactly. And if you put together, say, let's just say 30, 40, 50 years of your working life, amass that together and chop 10%, that's a hell of a lot of money, and hell of a lot of work you put into those funds. So you want to make sure they're working for you at the
Yeah.
utmost. Yeah, definitely awareness, because there's obviously been some major changes to whether it be super funds, property market, investments with capital gains tax discount changes. So it's never more important, I think, to be aware, to have the questions with your professionals, your accountants, etc.
Yes.
Because you need to be smarter in this environment. It's not really a set and forget, as much as it was over the last sort of 10, 20, 30 years. You need to smartly invest, and that's by knowing what's available or what's at your disposal in the current climate.
And you can join it as well. So your super, with a self-managed super, you can join with your wife or your family or your kids or whatever. So have a look into that as well. But hopefully that's a nice little segue for people into money that they've got and what they can do with.
Definitely, definitely. No, that's great, Mark. And one thing I just want to ask you quickly, you said separate, they're treated separately. Does that refer to serviceability then and land tax, those sorts of things?
Yeah, it
So yeah,
does.
big advantages there as well.
Yeah.
Especially with negative gearing going, your serviceability is down 20 to 30%. So, like I said, smart investor pivots based on what's at their disposal, what's on the tool belt. So awesome to bring this up. And obviously a lot of people are getting onto it based on the numbers. So great chat this morning, guys. Thanks, Mark. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone. So, take care.